So today we're working on a 2004 Chevy Avalanche. And this is a guy that we actually met. I actually sold a frame to this guy on Facebook Marketplace, and then he reached out to me again. He follows our YouTube channel here, as you should be, like a subscriber. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey dude, will you do a rear main seal on my Avalanche?" Okay. So let's get into it. The first step that you're going to want to do, kind of like you're doing on just about any vehicle, especially when you're dealing with electronicals and having to like undo harnesses and all that, the first thing you always want to do is disconnect the battery. So on these, there are side post battery. You'll just come to the side post. It's an 8mm, and you want to disconnect the ground. So some people will tell you disconnect the power. Do not disconnect the power. You can if you want, but I'll tell you why the ground real quick. Because when you're attached to this lug, and you're wrenching, and maybe you're talking to a camera like I am, and you're not really paying attention, what happens if you go too far and touch the body? So if you're connected to the power, and you go too far and you touch something like the body or the engine or something that's grounded on the vehicle, you're gonna have an arky sparky fun time. If you're on the ground, the only thing you have to be worried about touching is the power. But you can touch anything else you want. So it's kind of the safe way of doing things. And that breaks the circuit. It disconnects it. Now you can touch power and everything all you want and touch that to ground, and it doesn't matter. You won't get the arky sparky because you're not grounded by the battery anymore. So disconnect from ground every time to start. Don't do the power. Unless you have like no access to the ground, then you can carefully disconnect the positive. But I always go to the SAD cable and take that one off because it's the best way to do it. So that's step one before you put it in the air. Step two before you put it in the air is make sure you got the parts out of the back of the car that you're going to be putting on the car or on the vehicle. I can't tell you how many times I've put a vehicle up in the air and I've got the transmission pulled and it's supported on a jack and all these things, and then you're like, crap, I can't lower the vehicle because there's supports and things underneath. And I got to go find a ladder and climb up in there and get my parts because somebody didn't think ahead. Yeah. Don't do that. Also, the other thing I'll tell you is sometimes people, or depending on what factory options, there can be a secondary battery. So make sure you've got all batteries disconnected from the ground before you get going on anything. So we're going to throw this thing up in the air and take you along with pulling this thing all apart. All right, let's get in the air. Another piece of advice real quick, if you're using a lift, before you go all the way up, I did this earlier, but I'm going to show you this. If you're using a lift like I am, you can do this from the ground, by the way. It just makes it a little bit more difficult, but don't think just because you don't have a lift at home that you can't do this yourself, because you can. But if you do happen to have a lift in your backyard, then you probably don't need this instructional video. But you're here. When you lift up your vehicle, yeah, I know I'm on the frame. I know everything's where I need to be. Everything is set right. I've done this a million times. Like, we know. But still, even though I know, I'm actually going to go to the back of the vehicle and do this real quick because it kind of gives a better example. These older lifts, they have a long arm, so this vehicle will rock a little bit. But what I want to show you is when you get it up in the air, and actually not even as far up as I am right now, just go ahead and give the thing a wiggle. So you can see, like, I'm just flexing the arm is all I'm doing right now, but the vehicle itself is secure. There's no weird rocking noise. There's no, like, it doesn't feel cattywampus or off, canter. Make sure you can get it as level as you want, as you can, not as level as you want, as level as you can, and then give the vehicle a shake while it's lower. That way, if it's gonna fall, it's gonna do it when it's like this far off the ground before you're 6 feet in the air and the thing decides to fall. So just a little safety thing, wiggle the vehicle because you're gonna be underneath there wiggling the vehicle like crazy anyways. So you're gonna be pulling bolts, and those transmissions, they like to get stuck, and you're gonna be probably doing some wiggling, and you don't want it to come down on top of you. So to cross street, push button, wait for green light. We don't have to wait for the green light. We just go. Yeah, the switch went out on this a while back, and I had this, and it's the same switch, just a little different style button on the inside. the way that the button is accessed. So we just wired this in. I find this a lot more fun. So don't be afraid to have some fun with your stuff. And yes, you also don't hear the clicking because I did bypass the safety measure on this thing. It should have the locks, and I don't have the locks on. A couple reasons. One, in the beginning when I put this in, I didn't have air out here, and actually I still don't have air plumbed out here, and this has an air release for the locks, and I just never put air out here for the release, so I just removed the springs. All right, so step one is you're going to want to remove the rear drive shaft. On these are really easy. You got 4 11mm bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the U-joint. That'll remove this cap. Now I'll show you something and why I have a Sharpie. This really doesn't matter at this point, but if you want to just kind of double check, kind of make sure and line things back up right, you can come on here and I will just make a mark on the drive shaft. I'll make a single mark on the cap, and then I'll make a single mark on the actual yoke itself. And that way I've got a one line here, and then I'll come to the other side and I'm going to make a double mark on the cap and a double mark on the yoke. And if you wanted to, you can do a double mark on the drive shaft if you want. On the drive shaft. What this will do is it'll help you put it back to factory specs if you really care. Honestly, it doesn't matter for the balancing of the drive shaft. In some applications it does. In this one, it really doesn't matter. But making the marks, now when I go back together, will be perfectly in alignment with the way that I took it apart. Most likely the transmission's gonna have some spinning and stuff up there, so where we put this back into the transmission's gonna be clocked different than what it is right now anyways. But it does, just mark it. If you have a Sharpie, take the time, mark it, and that way when you go back together, you're gonna set this cap right back on the exact factories, that one, and they'll be facing the same way. Just a little peace of mind type thing, you know. It's just it's not unnecessary, but yeah, go ahead and do it. It doesn't hurt to do it. Let me put it that way. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, you know. So we'll just pull the 11 mils, these couple bolts. And this is always fun for guys like Drew and I, because Drew's 6'4", I'm 6'3", and these lifts never go high enough. So it always makes this really fun, because we're both like underneath here, like crouching tiger, hidden dragon type style, bent over in half, huh?
Hitting the head
on everything. So if you guys want, in the comments down below, leave a comment on how many times you see me whack my head, or how many times the camera shakes because Drew hits his as he's backing up. I've gotten pretty good about not hitting my head a ton, but I'll probably still hit it. So again, so there's my marks on the cap, and we still have the mark here, and that'll just help me realign everything when we go back together. Pry bar, wrench, whatever you want, pop it out of the U-joint, or the U-joint out of the yoke. It'll just slide the drive shaft. Simple enough. One of the things you'll want to make sure you're being very careful of are these caps. These are full of little needle bearings. So when I take it out, I just put my fingers on and pinch them. They're not gonna spring out at you or nothing, but they're just full of needle bearings and little tiny bearings that like to go all over the place. And then we're just gonna pull it away from the transmission and let it just pour on the ground. Smart guy would have put a bucket down there. I never claimed to be smart. But keeping my fingers on the cap so they don't fall off, I'm just gonna take this guy and we're just gonna set it off to the side here and get it out of our way. One of the things you can do that I've done in the past, especially when I'm working on like semi trucks and stuff like that, is I'll take some electrical tape and just kind of wrap it one time around those. I know it's gonna be safe over there, but if you're gonna be moving it a bunch, just put a loop of electrical tape just to hold the caps in. Again, they don't spring, they don't do anything, but you just really don't want those falling out, because then you're picking up little needle bearings and cleaning them and repacking, and you always lose one. And then you gotta buy a new U-joint, it's just a pain. Just take that step, right? Just take the step. I'm telling you. All right, we're gonna just start getting into it, disconnecting stuff. I think one of the first things that we'll do is I'll probably loosen up the exhaust, because I just kind of want to see how that's going to go. We're definitely going to have to pull the exhaust. There's a crossover pipe right here that's going to be in the way of removing the transmission, so obviously the exhaust comes up. Just follow it. We're going to be right here. These 3 bolts There's one on the back side here, and then there's 3 bolts on this side for this side of the exhaust, and then we'll have 2 bolts all the way back here. But what I'm gonna do, obviously we can't get it out fully yet. I might be able to wiggle it out, but I'm just gonna get it loose in preparation for removing this cross member. So that way I can just have it out. But it's one of those things that can be a major problem. While the vehicle was hot, I put it on the lift last night and I went ahead and lubricated the bolts with some PB Blast. And I like to do that when it's hot because that metal's, you know, expanding, and it uses that, it'll actually suck it up into those threads. So just be aware and lubricate these bolts really, really well. Maybe even like if you know you're gonna do the project in a couple days, start lubricating those bolts, because that heat, no matter where you are, and we're in Arizona, we don't have rust out here, but that heat and the constant expansion and contraction of those bolts will cause problems. So make sure you're being prepared on that ahead of time and lubricating those. As we're getting ready to pull the exhaust, we will notice that there's O2 sensors. The easiest one to see right here is gonna be this O2 sensor. I've seen guys try to unthread them and twist the crap out of the wires. Please don't do that. Just pull the connectors. So we'll get all these O2 sensors disconnected right here. There's one here for the pre-cat. There's gonna be one up here for the pre-cat. And then there's gonna be one back here that's post-cat. That guy's right here, so we'll just disconnect everything here real quick and just let them hang. Oh boy. So these should slide right off. Should. And well, maybe not. So these have a little keyway in them, a little lock protector, this little green guy. Just pop that out, and then we'll just disconnect them. Pretty simple. Sometimes they slide off, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you gotta pop them out of the frame. But they're just a little Christmas tree on the back of a slide. Why are you not sliding out? Okay. There we go. So it's just got this slide on here, and I wanted to get one out so I could show you guys what it looks like. But it's just got a little slide. You got to kind of lift up on them. They like to break, but we have a pick. We can get underneath here, lift up on this, and it'll slide off. So I'll show you that here. So when they're up in there and they're actually put away right, it's just got a little lock on it, and they should slide off. Sometimes they get packed with dirt and they don't like to. But there we go. So that'll just slide off. So you can normally do that while it's up in there. I wanted to get one down here where you can see it. So when we go back in, we'll just pop that back into the hole on the frame. Easy enough. There we go. So I just get all these disconnected and ready to come out, and then we'll put the impact on these guys. I always recommend using an impact on these bolts. If it's not coming loose, don't keep hammering on it. But an impact will jar when you're, how do I explain this? I see a lot of guys, they'll use a wrench to try and get these bolts or these nuts loose on the exhaust. The problem with a wrench is it's nice because you do have more control, but if you learn how to use your impact gun properly, you can actually have a lot of control with your impact gun. And the wrench is, you're putting it on and you're stressing that nut, whereas with an impact gun, you're actually hammering, like multiple hammer. So it tends to jar that, and if there's something that's locked up in there, it can break that free. I don't remember. I think if I remember right, these are 15. Well, shoot, look at that. The memory is accurate today so far. And yeah, I'm using a chrome socket. Get over it. Somebody lost my 15. So if you see I'm bumping, I'm not just sitting there hammering on it. I'm gonna give it some bumps to see if it moves. And again, lubricating that last night with PB Blast while it's hot was probably one of the best things that I could have done. Look at that, they came off clean. It's a miracle. That one doesn't want to move. So we'll put a little wrench on that, or maybe get the bigger impact. All right, these are a little bit tighter. Perfect. And that one needs a wobblies. Again, we don't have a lot of rust here. But if you can see, even when I'm using the wrench, I'm not just pulling on it. I'm jerking on it because I want to get those to break free. I don't want them just to break. Oh, and it's just right there, but of course that's in the way. Wobbles. I guess I could get a shorter extension on it too. And get up in there, but perfect. All right. You ever had a wobbly come off this thing when it's at high speed and whack you in the head? If the answer is no, you haven't worked on enough cars yet. I'll tell you that. Because until you get whacked in the head by one of these things coming loose, when that wobbly starts going crazy because it fell off the bolt and it just starts and comes off and smacks you in the head. All right, we got two back here we're gonna get. Again, same thing. These are just the rear ones. Right up here. Oh, man, this might be the... I'm not gonna say it. I think this is one of the first ones I've ever done that like came apart that easy. Oh, okay. It's been a long time since I've worked on this kind of stuff. And that's for a reason. It's because I just, well, it just doesn't excite me anymore. Oh yeah, I forgot to undo this one. I knew there was one more. You know? Let me remember if these will come out. I don't think so. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Pull these guys. That'll let me lower the cross member, but I'm gonna do a couple other things before I get to that. Because there's lines and stuff that we gotta pull. But I really want to get this out, this exhaust out, because it just kind of frees everything up completely. So I might go ahead and grab the trans jack, stab it under here real quick. Because I don't remember these coming out without a major problem and kind of a pain because of this one over here. So let me pull these bolts, lower this cross member a little bit so we can get the exhaust out, and then we'll have it supported. And we can start popping other stuff loose. I need to get myself a flathead screwdriver because we'll need to pop some of these guys loose here with the linkages. You know, kind of start getting easy stuff and work our way up. There's electronicals all up in here and lines and all that stuff that we got to get out, starter, all that. So let me grab a couple other tools and go eat some breakfast. And we'll come back to working on this. Okay. It's like a Jane Fonda video. These are like 5 hours later. If I remember right, I have to bring the lift down. I think the lift is too tall for this trans jack. By the time all things are said and done, and then when they're done and said, it's the same thing. Yep. That's all she's got. That's all she's got. That's all she's got. I'm like a cool kid now. Or I say things like giat and skibbity riz. And I don't have the right size sockets. What size is this? Yeah, okay. Oh, look at that. Well, would you look at that? Okay. We had breakfast. My wife made breakfast for Father's Day. Pretty awesome. It's hot. I'm sweating. I got the lip sweats going on, man. I'm telling you. Anywho, I just really want to get this exhaust out. So I'm going to drop the cross member real quick. This guy. And there's 4 bolts, 2 on each side. You can see the other side of the bolts here. And they are a 21 millimeter bolt. So I'm going to get the big gun out. I'm going to drop this down, but before I do that, I've got to lower the lift a little bit so we can just rest on the trans jack, because I want to be able to, I'm just going to lower it for a second. And then I'll probably put the bolts back in and the cross member back in just loosely, because there's a lot of stuff we've got to disconnect, but I'm tall and my lift, clearly, trans jack doesn't go high enough to catch the trans. This is maxed out right now. And a lot of the stuff is easier to access when you have the exhaust out. So if I was doing this on the ground, I would have my floor trans jack underneath here. I would pull the cross member and I would leave it out. Just simply because it gets the exhaust out of the way so I can access everything. If I was 5'3" or 8, I would also leave the trans jack underneath it and not put the cross member back in. But because God made me tall, and lifts are made short, and trans jacks don't seem to work for every standard lift. You know, all these things come together to create the perfect storm of, we're going to put something back in here in a minute. So I'm just going to lower this down real quick to get the exhaust out, give myself that little bit of wiggle room, and go from there. If you want to, you can pull the little bolt from underneath here, which I might do, so I can just pull just the cross member. You have your trans mount bolt up in there. I believe, if I remember right, that's a 15, if I remember. 14? Looks like a 14. So we're gonna pull that. That's the next step. And I don't need this socket. So we'll bring down the lift a little bit. Be really careful when you're doing this, the way that I'm doing it, because if you don't stop the lift in time, you'll push the vehicle off. And we don't ever want that. We don't want that, do we? No. Actually, we're gonna straddle it that way. No, I don't like that. This one has a drain plug on it. So we're gonna put a piece of wood underneath there. So I just need myself a little short 2x4. And I'm gonna put it right underneath here. All I'm trying to do is just support the weight right now. And you can catch the edge of the trans pan, it's okay. It's not gonna collapse. But I do have a drain plug in here, so we wanna be aware of that. And what I don't wanna do is set this down on top of that drain plug, because it will collapse that drain plug. You're putting all the weight of everything on that drain plug. You don't want to do that. Be aware. Be aware, be prepared. And we're just gonna come down a little bit and just kind of support the weight. Like right there, just to where it's touching. That's all I need. Yeah, that'll work. And that way we can pull everything else out. Oh, weird. Maybe it's a 15 like everything else. Maybe that's what it is. Well, I'll be. My micrometer is. We'll capture that bolt. And then we'll grab the big gun and we'll pull these other bolts out. Probably spinning the nut, isn't it, over there, Joe?
Yes.
Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Yep, that's Chevy for you. Typically it'd be a smaller nut, but it's not. Whoa. Is that not? Yeah. Shit. Now also, if you're doing this on the ground, you don't necessarily have to pull that center bolt. I'm just going to pull the cross member, that's why I'm pulling it. You could leave the whole cross member attached to the transmission. nothing wrong with that. One less bolt to pull, you know. It comes off easy. Come on. Oh, Chevy, why you got to be such a pain with everything? So me personally, I like to put my nuts back with my bolts and then lay them in the direction that they came out. Sometimes you get into the stuff, you get pulled away, you got kids, you got everything, and you got to come back after breakfast and you're like, man, where did that go? Or which way did it go? So I like to just put things back. I'll take these exhaust bolts in a second. I'll put them back up where they came from. Just kind of so you have everything, you know, where it came from. Got a wire here on the cross member. We're just going to remove that. And then, I guess I got a little premature on pulling all the exhaust. I got a little excited. So you know what? Let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's just be silly about this. Let's have a little fun. We'll pull this side so I can control things a little bit better. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we'll pull the side. Why are you not? Wanting to release. There we go. That just has a lot of tension on it from the exhaust. Well, I mean, honestly, did I put that trans jack right in my own way? Probably. Ha 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 ha! How fun is that? Wires, connectors, all the stuff. There we go. Don't put the trans jack in your way. All right. We're out of breath. Okay. Okay. Here we go. No, we're good. I'm not that fat. All right. Like I told you, for me, I like to put things kind of back. You know, there's a lot of distractions in life. So these are the two nuts that came off the exhaust. We're gonna put them right back on, just the end of it. While it's sitting over here, the U-bolts, the straps for the not U-bolts, but the straps for the U-joints, I rested up here. We know where those go. That's pretty self-explanatory. But the rest of this stuff, we're gonna put them back up on. We're just gonna, you know, a half a thread, just let them hang there. It does a couple things. One, it reminds me where it went. Number two, sometimes when you're having to cram your arms into places, those threads will rip on your arm, and it kind of gives a little bit of protection from that. You know, why not? So, I'm just gonna stay squatted. Do it. We'll just stay squatted, and we'll do it this way. And then the other thing I like to do is remember the clocking of how these things go. So as I'm taking a part out, I'll lay it down in the direction I took it out. So when I know when I pick this up, it goes right back in facing that way. If you don't have the availability or space to do that, mark a little arrow on it. Most of these things really don't matter, but like this, you'll see we've got spaces for harnesses and all that, so it kind of does matter. And it makes just life a little bit easier when you lay things out and you think about them as you're doing it. It just makes your life easier. I know I said I was going to put the cross member back in. I'm allowed to change my mind. Okay? Leave me alone. Let me do what I want. Okay? I'm the one with the wrench in my hand, dang it. I do what I want. You know? That might get my way later. I could take it out. But for now, if you don't like it here, go put them down on the bracket. Whatever. It's okay. You're the one working on it. All right. We just need to come in here and literally everything that's connected to the transmission has to be disconnected. I mean, I can't really say it any easier than that. You can follow wires, look at looms, see where things go, see where they're attached, disconnect as you go through here. And really, that's the name of the game right now, is disconnecting all of this crap out of the way. I'll show you how to get the shift linkage off. Flathead screwdriver. And usually they just kind of carefully pop off. And there you go, there's that part of it. And then on the back side here, we've got this clip. Can you see that right there? We just got this clip right here. Make sure you lose it. And you know, just throw it on the floor somewhere. Why not? Thank you, Drew. So that little clip right there, it just sits on top and it basically locks in the pins, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll see if I can get my fat fingers in here. If not, I'll have to get a pair of pliers. But there's two little clips, and I'll show you once I get it out of here. There we go. And that just slides out of the bracket. So when we're looking up in there, there's two little clips that you got to pinch. See that guy right there? And then on the other side. And those are just little pressure clips. So you're going to put it through the bracket here, slide it in, that'll lock in, and then that piece we took out locks all that in. And it keeps those clips from being able to be compressed. Pretty simple, right? It's all good so far. All right, I'm just gonna come in here and just keep finding plugs and stuff that need to be taken out. And keep unplugging stuff. So we'll have a main harness here. We've got some trans lines on the other side. We're also going to take off the starter, and I'll probably pull this shield off so I can get to some things. Why don't I go ahead and do that real quick. 10mm bolt. If I remember right, it's just a, is there two or is there three? I don't remember. I think it's just the 2 bolts. Is there one down below? Oh, it was just stuck. So again, that bracket, I'm going to orient it. It came out this way. So we know it came out this way. I'll lay the bolts in it and I'll set it off to the side in the same direction it came out. These are those little things that people don't tell you, you know? This is why it's such a pain keeping this thing down low. Down low, down low, down low. So I'm gonna bring the trans down a little bit, give myself some room. So I can literally lower the jack. We can bring that down a little bit. That'll give us some space up there to be able to work. All right. Perfect. Because I know I need space. I totally forgot how this connector comes undone. I don't know why they don't just do them all the same. Oh, that's right, we got a 10mm up here, or an 8mm. We got an 8mm up there, and that'll take this bracket off the side of the transmission. Nice thing about building custom stuff is You got nobody telling you how it was done. You just do it. And if it doesn't work, you do it a different way. All right, 8mm. That relieves us of this bracket. Again, I'm gonna put the screw just back in there, the bolt, and that relieves all this pressure. We are gonna come back to that guy because I honestly don't remember how that one, did it pop down? Oh man. Yeah, that's right, okay. It'll come to me eventually, some of this stuff. That's right, it's got one of those little locking slide guys on it. There you go. And I'm gonna take this and just tuck it right above this line up here so it stays out of my way while we're doing all this stuff. Just try and get some of this out of your way if you can, so you're not coming back together pinching everything. We doing good so far? All right, glad to hear you're doing good too. I gotta watch the eye sockets on that one, because that's not gonna be fun. All right, let's go ahead and get this starter loose. It's gonna be over on this side. We've got just 2 bolts, and there is a couple wires hooked to it. If I remember right, I've been able to pull these, like usually you pull all the wires and take the whole starter out. If I remember right, I can pull the 2 bolts and just set the starter back, because there's space behind here and we have the power disconnected, so we shouldn't have to worry about it. Is everything just a 15? It's not. It's just got that bracket in my way. That's right. And then does that come off? Let's try that. Oh, what is that? 10 mil. All right, got a 10 mil right here. And that should, I thought that got out of the way, but maybe not. Does that not get out of the way? Does that straddle the starter? It does straddle the starter. Perfect. Just like we like it. All right, after much deliberation, we have decided that we're going to use a 13mm socket on the starter because that happens to be the right size. That happens to be the size that they want. So as much as you try to use your own and do your own thing, you kind of got to do what they put in there, you know? All right. Yep, doesn't throw oil all in my eyes. We'll put that right above Drew's head, so if it drips on him. You have to be a little bit careful when you're pulling these, especially if you're doing a rear main, because there is oil all inside of there. And when you're spinning that bolt fast, it'll sling it everywhere. So I already got enough moisture in my eyes from the sweat. Yuck. Sweat. Yuck. Can we just please just let me slide you back and not have to disconnect everything? That'd be really quite nice of you. Ow, ow. There's 2 for those of you keeping count at home. I told you, when this thing gets lowered, it's just not fun for a tall guy. Okay. Really, could you put this in a more just inconvenient location? Wow. What am I running into over here? Because this should at least slide back enough to get that cover off. Okay, that cable, is that one attached somewhere still? Nope. It's just in the way. Okay. we may end up disconnecting this, guys. If we can't get it out of the way, we may end up coming off with it. I don't know yet. I think I'm spending more time trying to not disconnect things than it would be if I just, oh, that's right, that dipstick's in the way. Dipstick. Because this thing has a shield on it. Yeah. Aha. Perfect. This is why mechanics hate engineers. 100% why. I ain't even a mechanic. I'm just an idiot working on stuff. Okay, I'm gonna try and get the shield off, which you're not gonna be able to see down there. But I'll show it to you what it looks like. If it'll come out of there. Oh, just gotta yell at it. So that's the shield. I took a little skin with me, but this shield sits on top of the starter. It's got a little keyway in it and everything, and they just snap on. There's no bolts, no nothing to it. Most people never put them back. We will. But that does help us get some space. There we go. And then this little plastic guy that, quite honestly, most of the time you never see put on there. I mean, you see them on there, but once somebody's been in, they usually don't go back on. And that can only orient one way, so we're just gonna throw it to the side. Sound good? Cool. Starter's dangling. Next is these transmission lines. And then we'll have this big cannon plug up here that we'll have to remove too. So we'll get that cannon plug off, and we'll get these transmission lines off, and we'll show you how to do that. Where did my pick go? This would be so much easier if we were up higher. So these have, I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't on the camera. I can't here. I can't see it. But these have a little spring clip. So you'll shift this thing back off of here, and then there'll be a spring clip that just sits around these trans lines. And you gotta get yourself ready for some spillage. So I'm probably gonna come on the side where you're at, Drew, unfortunately. And see if I can't cut my hands up a little bit more and get these spring clips off. Now these are always fun because every time you do them, you lose them. Yeah, we're just gonna do this the most difficult way possible. Let me get one of these off. I'm gonna walk around this thing a little bit, probably sharpen my pick so I can get underneath it a little bit easier. And I'll bring you guys back and show you what they look like and how they work. How about that? Okay. This is the clip. That's what you're trying to get out. And the first one we popped out from up here, and as typical, it sprung out, bing, and you heard it hit the ground, and you go on a search for it. The second one didn't pop out, but again, these sausages get in the way, and it fell out and went on the ground. That's why these are always lost, because they suck. They actually make, once you get them off, it makes doing the transmission typically a little bit easier. They're nice. Because, you know, like Jeeps and stuff, they're a lot worse. Those things always leak. They're terrible. These are nice because they pop in once they're there. Getting them out, up in there, no, I'll pass. It's literally like chopsticks and wiggling and moving, and it's, I know there's an easy way. I'm sure you guys are, sure you're yelling at me right now. Do it like this, don't do that. It's not how I do it. So I just remembered we do have a breather on top. I gotta pull the clamp on that, so I gotta get a pair of pliers to pull the little clip. But right up on top, up here, you'll see this breather line that comes back here. So just follow it again. You're always following lines. And then right here, it goes into the transmission. There's a little metal nipple there. Careful, because it goes into a plastic connector T right here. So you don't want to break that. But we're going to take this little clamp off, and it's just one of those spring clamps. Another one of those things that are, whoever invented them should be drug out in the street and shot. But we're going to get a little pair of pliers on that, and we'll pull that clamp back so we can get this hose off of here and get us free of that. And then we start doing torque converter bolts. Fun stuff, right? I think so. It's really not that hard. It's just, you know, the way they build these things. That's what makes it hard. Are we going to be able to get to that, or do they clock that into a position that is just, okay, impossible. Perfecto mundo. Thank you, Chevrolet, for your thought and consideration of the repairs of the vehicle. You're a kind-hearted soul, because every man likes a challenge and a puzzle. Just not on our vehicles. Jeez, I hate these clips. These are like, these things are from the devil. Is this really necessary? Yes, Brandon, it is. Is it really? How about we just take a Sawzall to this thing and get it right out of here? Take a Sawzall to the floor. It'd be really nice. Oh, there we go, finally. It'd be really cool if they gave us actually like a hatch. You know, like the C8000 has. Oh, this thing is baked on there. Really? How far? Man, what is that? Have we even made any progress? This is where we break our knuckles. You know, when the kids go, "Dad, why do your hands look like that?" It's because of Chevys. Actually, I like Chevys. I'm not gonna lie to you. But all the engineering sucks from everybody. All right. I think we got everything disconnected, if I recall. We still have the transmission dipstick tube. Dipstick. And I sure as hell hope my memory isn't wrong that that's connected up top, because that would really suck. I don't remember, but that's okay. We might lose a little bit of fluid here pulling these trans lines, but now that we have those clips off, these transmission lines just pop right out. Well, they should. Sometimes they wait till you're directly underneath them so they can leak all over you, you know, because they're friendly like that. They like to share in their mess. That was the one thing I don't freaking remember, is where the, oh yeah, that bolted up there. Okay, good. So the transmission dipstick's gonna have to come out, and that's right, this black tube right here. And if we, again, like this kind of mechanics, right? Like you just follow it up and you can see this bracket that's attached to the tube, and it goes right there to that bolt. So when we pull this nut off, right here where my hand's at, When we pull that nut off, we'll be able to pull the transmission dipstick tube out and get it out of our way. And actually that is on a slide too. If I remember right, the bracket is slotted. So we should be able to even just pull it out without having to take that all the way out. But before we get into any of that and we start making too big of a mess, we're gonna start turning over the engine and we're gonna start disconnecting all of our bolts for the flex plate. Oh. Oh, look at you, you're pretty. Aren't you pretty in there? Aren't you just a pretty, pretty mess? All right, let's go ahead. Cool. I'm slowly getting it back. All right. It's forking hot out here, guys. So to turn the engine over, you can simply go right off the bolt on the harmonic balancer, 24mm socket, and you can come right up in there. Deep should fit, should get you right on it. You're just gonna come right on the center bolt to the harmonic balancer, and that'll allow you to basically rotate the engine. So that's what we want to be able to do, because we need to find our bolts for the flex plate to the torque converter. And we got to pull all damn bolts off. Otherwise, when we pull this all out, everything's going to want to come with it. And we really don't want that. We want to leave the torque converter in the transmission and the flex plate bolted up to the engine. That's how the engine and the transmission talk, are those bolts. And I think there's 6 of them, if I remember right. But my memory hasn't been perfect so far, so there could be 25 of them. I don't know. We're just going to all right, Drew, if you want to come up here, see if I can put this flashlight somewhere where you can see. We're looking through where the starter was. So the starter was mounted right here, and you can see that bolt right there. So that's one of the flex plate bolts, and we got to remove all of those. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that one. Should be a 15 if I remember right. And we'll get that one broke free. We'll rotate the engine and go on to the next one. So all you gotta do is look where the starter was mounted, rotate the engine for the bolt to pop up, take it out, go around and get the next one. Till they're all out, till you see no moat. That's all we're gonna do. So let me get all these out and we'll come back and show you what it looks like. I want to show you guys how to get this cannon plug off, because this seems to be another point of contention for some people. So right up here on top of the trans, we have our cannon plug, and that's what this guy is. And really all it is this little, there's right here, you pinch here and pinch here. So you're just going to pinch down, pop it up, simple as that. So don't go putting a pry bar underneath that thing and breaking it all. Just pinch, pop. Those usually come off pretty easily, fairly simply. Now we get to do all the bolts around the bell housing. So we've got all the bolts up here that have the studs. Some of these are going to have a nut on them. That's why they're studs. They're going to have a nut where a bracket mounts. So we'll have one up here that holds the transmission dipstick tube. There'll be, I think, 2 on the other side, one all the way on the top and one kind of off in the same position. The nuts that are on those studs are a 13mm socket deep well. I would recommend. If you can, get some long extensions and come from all the way back here and just stretch all the way down there and zap on them. That should get them loose. So if you guys stack a bunch of extensions, try that first, okay? Because getting up in here with a little wrench and just slowly like dink, dink, that just sucks. And you're probably gonna bust a couple knuckles and have a lot of fun. So long extension, impact gun, we should be able to get them loose. We're gonna find out. Seems like a couple of my extensions have grown legs and walked away as other people have used my tools. So we're gonna see what we can make happen here to the best of our abilities. But again, the nut on the outside is a 13 mil. The bolt itself, the rest of all the bolts are gonna be a 15 mil. Pretty simple. Make sure you get them all loose before you start prying on your transmission, because you don't want to be breaking your bell housing because you left one in. So that's why we tilted the transmission down a little bit so we can see the top of the bell housing. We can pretty much see all around the transmission and what we're doing, so that we can find all of our bolts and pull them all out. Because I've seen guys do that, where they have one in the very top and they forget about it, and they're down here trying to, man, the stupid dowel pins are stuck and the thing's stuck, and then they finally pop, and the whole, it's not pretty. Don't do it. Don't recommend it. Like it. There we go. We're gonna see, since my long extension is gone, we've got these two longish extensions, and I am going to start with the bolt that is for the trans dipstick tube, which is actually a nut, not a bolt. We're going to get right on that, straight up ahead, and we're just going to pop that guy loose and see if we can't fish it out of there without dropping it. Wow, look at that. So now that'll let me pull the trans dipstick. Again, you can see, maybe, up here at this bracket is slotted. You'll see it when I pull it out, but we'll lift this guy out and get the dipstick out of here. Dipstick! Don't let anybody call you that now. You dipstick. Hopefully it'll come out nice. If not, we're gonna have to find a way to lower this down and rip it out from up top. But we'll see. We'll play with that in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and get all these off that have brackets. There's one all the way at the top that I might have to get a little wobbly on. We're gonna find out. And there's one off to this side. So I'm gonna get those free and see if we can't do something. Oh yeah, where did it go? I think that's gonna need a wobble probably. We'll see. Strip it out. So we get a little wobble on that thing, so we can get the angle, the dangle in there, because it's just doesn't want to come low enough for me to get it. That's okay. Wobbles it is. We got all the bolts out. I laid the ones from the left, or from the drinker side over here, and the one from the driver's side over here. So that way, again, orientation. Remember where things are as best you can. It almost doesn't matter, especially on this. There's some of them that you'll have like some bolts and some studs and stuff like that on different transmission styles. This one really has two bolts at the bottom, and the rest are all these stud bolt things. I don't know what you call them. So it really makes it pretty easy. Sometimes you got to remember where some of these things go, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. So we're gonna try and get this out now. I'm hoping that it just comes free. I don't know. Sometimes you can wiggle them. All right. We got one side free. So we just gotta get the other side free. There we go. So these sit in a dowel pin. There's two alignment pins on the back of the engine block. There's two holes in the transmission that those pins go into. And everything should, in theory, it's just because it's hooked in front. Once we come down a little bit, we should be fine. So we should be free.
Yep.
Well, if the guy was smart, he'd put a strap on this thing and bring it down that way, but, again, nobody ever claimed I was smart. You seeing clearance up there, Drew?
We're good.
Now, if you notice, I'm bringing it down slow because I want to make sure we're not tugging on any lines and I didn't forget anything. It'll happen. You might forget things. But now I can see that everything's clear, nothing's holding up. Everything's all disconnected. We can bring her on down. And I think I'll just bring it down that far. And what I'll probably do, since this wants to tilt, is we'll go grab a ratchet strap. We'll get on here over the top of this bell housing, or to the top of the transmission housing. And that way I can kind of keep it up here. I'm not pumping my legs for 450 pumps to get it back up there. So that got our transmission out. I'm gonna have Drew take a break for a minute. But before I do that, actually I'll show you. Drew, if you want to see right here, this is your dowel pin hole. So bolts are going through this hole and through this hole down here. But right here is where you'll have the dowel pin. And if you look up on the engine block up here, there's your dowel pin sticking out. You got one there and you got one there. So let me get this transmission strapped down out of the way, and then I'll come back in. I'll show you a couple things before we start taking this rear main seal off. And how's all this dangles in my face and gets me all greasy faced and everything, you know. And that's just what you're supposed to do. All right, we got the transmission sitting behind me, strapped onto that thing. It leaked everywhere, so I'm standing on rocks now. But it's okay. We're gonna let that soak up the trans fluid while we work on what we got to get off. So a couple things I want to point out real quick before I remove the flex plate is, like we talked about, there's the dowel pins on the engine. You also have up here this bracket. Remember when we took the nuts off of those bolts, or the studs, we were taking them off because this mounts to that nut. There's another one up here that does the same thing, this bracket right here for this hose. So when you go to put the transmission back on, and the reason why I'm showing you this now, because when you're mating the transmission back up, one of the common mistakes that happens a ton, two things. One, this bracket likes to hang out down here because it's hooked to metal lines. So sometimes when you're putting it in and you're not paying attention, this bracket will actually get between the bell housing and the engine, and you can actually crack the bell housing when you tighten these bolts because it creates a void. And this is just cast aluminum. It likes to crack. So when you're putting the transmission back in, you got to make sure you're being well aware that you're getting that bracket up and out of the way when we mate the transmission back into here. My voice is like going away because of how dry this air is today. The other common thing that you have to be aware of, and not so much on this one, but just on a lot of vehicles, when you're mating stuff up, a lot of times there's harnesses that are running here. And a lot of times these harnesses are deteriorated. There's wires just dangling out. People have cut things, extended things. You don't know what they've done. So be aware when you're putting the transmission back up that you're not pinching these wires or catching them between the bell housing and the engine, because you'll pinch them, you'll cause a short to ground, and then you're hunting down an issue and you're like, oh, I don't know why this isn't working, and it's because you smashed the wire. So those are the two things to be aware of when we go back together. Right now we're still coming apart, but it's on my brain, so I had to tell you now. We're going to take the flex plate off. I went ahead, now you don't have to do this, right? These only go on one way. If you have an alignment hole here, there's only one spot where there's a drilled hole that aligns it. You don't have to do this. I, again, just put a marking on it. Sometimes with heat, or tired, or you haven't eaten anything, or you're frustrated with the project, your brain just doesn't start putting things together, and you're just trying to get it done, and you try and put this thing on wrong. So I do an orientation mark. One, it tells me that I was in here last, because if something happens and someone's like, no, you did that, and I'm like, no, I didn't. I come in here and I know I always mark them, where a lot of people don't. So I know what my marks look like. And number two is just a brain reminder thing. So again, 15 mil. We'll use the big gun. We should be able to get them all right out. And I'm just going to set these aside before I take the last one out. Put all these right above Drew's head. And before I take the last one out, now this should stay up here, but just be careful when you take the last one out. So, you know, just hold the plate. You don't have to put tons of pressure. Just make sure it doesn't just fall out and go shattering on the floor. You know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that preventative, cautious stuff. I don't think I've ever actually had one fall, because they do kind of, you can tell it gets a little stuck on there, so you do have to walk them off, but you know, you just want to be careful just in case. So again, we can look at the flex plate. A couple things you want to do when you pull this is inspect it, make sure we don't have any cracks. A lot of times you'll see cracks here or here between where the mounting bolts are and the holes on the flex plate. That's really common on Jeep, a lot less common on Chevy. But so inspect that. If you look here, we have all the holes for the bolts, and then we have one extra hole. If you come up here on the back of the crank, we have the same thing. There's all the holes for the bolts and the one extra hole. So you do know when you go back together, we'll do that alignment. And that alignment will put us back together. So you don't have to make that mark. It's just one of those like brain things, you know? And looking at this, we can tell that this was definitely leaking. There is a sensor up on top on the back of the block that will also leak. And sometimes it looks like a rear main seal because it sits on the top here and it leaks down through and it looks like a rear main seal. So if you're doing this for a customer, a cousin, a friend, a frunkle, whatever it is, you want to verify and like maybe even just feel up here and see if there's a puddle of oil. There isn't. There's some stuff up there, but there's not a puddle. So we're not going to worry about that. We know it's the rear main seal. So we're going to go ahead and get that off now. And I'll show you. It's really pretty easy. A handful of bolts and that comes off. A little bit of cleaning and we're going right back on. You know, a little tap-tappy. A lappy-tappy, a lappy-tappy. Okay, enough of that. I'm gonna grab the gun, 10mm socket, and we'll pull that off real quick. The elusive 10mm. The elusive. Okay. Let's give ourselves a little bit cleaner space. What we're going to be removing is all of these guys along this plate. So all those guys and these two guys. These are the common ones everybody forgets. And then they get pulling these off and they go, it's stuck, and they put a pry bar and they break all this stuff. We're not going to do that today. And again, I recommend an impact and just do some taps. Don't hammer on it. And we will get some oil coming out. It's common. We're going to get some oil leaking out of this thing, dumping on us. So we're standing on a bed of rocks. You know, why be on a sandy foundation when you can be on one of rock? Did that make sense? I don't know. I'm not here. All up my arm. Dang, I got dirty. I'm going home. Screw this. Yep. Got some kitty litter on it. Oh, man. Okay. So those two long bolts. Now, do not pull the oil pan bolts. They're not necessary. Don't start messing with these other ones. The two bolts are all the way down here. Those are the ones you got to pull, not these. So now we're going to go around the outside of this and get the rest of them off of there. La-di-da, la-ta-ta, la-da-da-da. Ah! Why? Everything's falling down on my head. And don't be afraid if some oil comes out. It's okay. No, you stay up there because you're going to come right at my face. I know how you are. You're going to just hang out, okay? Relax. Be patient. Your turn's coming. And here comes the oil. This is when it's beneficial to have large hands. And I probably should have gotten one of those metal containers. Let's see if we can make all those fit right there. Look at that. Nasty. Ow, it was you that fell on my head. I got you. All right. So we're just going to pull this plate off. And that's your rear main seal. So you can order a kit that comes with the whole plate with the seal already installed. This customer, I normally don't let them buy their own parts, but this guy decided to buy his own parts and got me just the seal. And we can show you how to change out on that. So that's easy enough. We also have up here this gasket, and they always seem to stick to the engine block. So we're just going to get the gasket off, nice and easy. There's a couple little different spots you can grab it from. And there's that. We're going to replace that too. So we'll come up in here, we'll clean some of this. There's still some gasket left, a little bit of it broke. That's okay, it'll all come off. We'll get a scraper, clean this, wipe it all down, make sure all this is good and clean. We'll clean this bracket or this plate up, make sure this surface is all good and clean so we have a good mating surface. And we'll show you how this comes together. Let me get some of this cleaned up real quick, and then we'll go in and show you how to change this O-ring. Not O-ring, seal. Why'd you call it an O-ring? You did it, not me. Alright, fine, it was me. Don't tell anybody. Okay, we've got the rear plate sitting here on the bench. You can do this on the ground wherever you want. We just happen to have a bench. There's two ways to do this. There's kind of an easy way and a hard way. Actually, there's probably three ways because they do make a tool for removing this. Don't waste your money. You can see you have these notches here. So if you wanted to, and I don't know if it's done this way so you can do it on the truck, which would be dumb, I think. You went all that way, why not do a couple bolts and replace one more gasket? But if you wanted to, you can come in here and you can start prying this thing out. They gave you these little pry notches. So you can sit in here and you can pry and you can pry and you can pry and slowly walk the seal out. And it works eventually. You know, it'll get there. I think that's dumb. So the other way to do it, get yourself some support where you can straddle this. You want to get your boards as close to this and this as you can, right? So support it, bring them in close. That way this is going to flex. So you got to be careful when you're doing this to not break everything. And put the screwdriver right in this spot underneath the seal, because we don't care if we damage the seal. And we know it's got to go that way. So sometimes we can bone hammer it. If that doesn't want to work, we can literally just start driving the seal out carefully. And somebody might have siliconed it in. So sometimes they're a little bit difficult to drive out, but we're making motion and we just want to slowly tap that seal and get it out of there. So we'll get that out of there carefully. Now when you're coming out on this side, realize your supports are here. This is still just aluminum, so you got to be careful not to crack it. If you're worried about it, maybe shift the board over towards that way a little bit, you know, where you're going to tap. You know, try to be close to that board where you're tapping, because you don't want to break this cover. Ooh, we can hear tone change. We like that. And she comes right out of there. Cool? Cool. So we want to be clear of the orientation of our seal. A lot of times the new ones will say, you know, this side up or front or whatever. Some of them don't. But we'll look at that orientation on the new seal. What I'm going to do is get this cleaned up, and we'll get the new seal in. It comes with this cute little ring. For alignment or something. They make a tool for just stop. Just do it. It doesn't have to take extra tools and all these extra things, man. You'll see this stuff online, and hey, here's the tool, you know, RP1276-43, and it's $1,700, so you can do that a broken screwdriver and a hammer took care of. So don't always believe all this stuff that you got to go buy all these tools, and there's ways to do this. And I'll show you one of the things that I do when I'm putting the new seal back in. that you know, they have a seal driver for this. Again, there is a tool for it, but you know, let me grab some brake cleaner and get this cleaned up real nice, and I'll bring you guys back to show you the installation of the new seal. Okay, we got the old seal out. We got the surface all cleaned in here. This is just some staining, don't worry about that, but we got all the oil and everything cleaned out of there. There's two schools of thought on this. Some guys like to put a little bit of silicone on the outer edge of this. I'm not one of those guys. You can if you want to. I don't know. The way that I look at it, if you look at a seal, there's ribbing, and it's a rubber ribbing that's in here. It's designed that way for a reason, and I don't want to plug that up with silicone. That's just the way that I've always been taught. Right, wrong, and different. It doesn't much matter. A lot of times also when you're looking at a seal, you'll see like a flat side basically. Like this does have a lip to it that's rubber, but then we see the bottom side has more of a ridge right here, and you can feel the metal ridge. So that ridge is going to be to the bottom. On almost every seal you do, that ridge is going to go towards the inside. The flat is on the outside. So it kind of just, you know, some of that easy stuff. When I get in here, I just like to kind of push it in a little bit by hand. It should start slightly by hand. I mean, it should go in a lot by hand, right? So we'll see that, I mean, we're just pushing it right in. It takes some pressure. You can see me shaking like crazy. But I'm just pushing on the outer edge, trying to be careful not to hit this ring here, right? I don't want to mess with that lip. So I'm just using my gorilla paws to push on that. And then here's my little trick that I do, because there is so again, there's a tool you can buy that goes in here that you tap on to drive the seal. Old school backyard, this is the way I've always done it. I take the old seal. If it's not completely like, you know, if you haven't had to drive something in the side and bend the seal to get it out, it's still round. See? I just take the old seal if it's allowable. I lay it over the top of the new one, and that gives me something, because I don't care about damaging this old seal. So it gives me something to tap against to just drive the new seal in. And we can hear the tone change on that as it bottoms out. We can even look at the bottom of it to see it's not going to look like it's completely bottomed out on that lip, but it's bottoming out on the, remember that ridge we saw? So we just want to give it a couple little love taps, make sure that ridge is bottomed out. We can feel along here and see that that gap is the same distance, and just make sure that you're bottomed out on there. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back on here. I'm just going to give it a couple little taps just to make sure that everything is in there. So it's starting to sound real good. It's starting to sound real solid. So you don't want to whack it too hard. You could break the tabs off the back. Again, we're dealing with aluminum, but I can see down looking at an angle down at this ridge right here that we're pretty even. So I'm happy with that. I did take the alignment tool out because you don't need it. You really don't. What we're going to do is put a little bit of oil or some penetrant or some sort of lubricant in here. All the oil that poured out of the back of it, we can grab it and just rub our finger on here so we're not installing this dry. And so when we go back over the crankshaft, this will be lubed up so that everything kind of sits nice. So we will do that before we install this. But now we've got to go back to the engine. I've got to clean the back of that. So you don't need to watch me do that. That's simple. Let me go clean that up, and then we'll install this with the new gasket, and I'll show you where we need to put some silicone, because you do need some silicone. All right, I'm gonna get that cleaned up, and we'll be back. Okay, so I'm just working on cleaning this up real quick, and I want to show you guys a couple things. One, I use a scraper, a mild scraper, not something abrasive, because we're dealing with aluminum and all sorts of stuff, so you don't want to be peeling stuff away, right? So use a scraper, get any excess gasket material off. I just took a little, what do you call this, Brillo pad, scrubby pad thingy, whatever you call it, and a little bit of brake clean, and just lightly shoot things and just scrub them. They're staining, you're gonna see it, but everything's off. Like that's not gonna be an issue what you're seeing up there right now. I will tell you this, and the reason why I want to talk about this while we have this part, don't spray too much. the tendency for some mechanics is to drain 4.5 cans to clean something. Stop. Like, it's scrub, and then you can come back and wipe with the rag. Like, take your time and do it slow. It's not a 4-can thing, and I'll tell you why. There's ports, there's holes, there's places for things to go, and you really don't want 12 cans of brake cleaner going down into your oil pan, especially if you don't plan on changing the oil. This customer didn't bring my oil in a filter. So be careful when you're taking the gasket material off that it doesn't fall down in. There are little cracks and crevices and ways it can. This is our oil pan gasket. Also, you'll notice when you're taking it apart, there'll be some silicone down on this edge and silicone down on this edge. Okay, so we just want to carefully get that off without destroying this gasket. And then when we put all this back together, we're going to put a little bead of silicone down there, a little bead of silicone. That just helps seal that edge. So all of this just needs to be clean. You're going to get oil dripping, you're going to get oil coming out. And that's the reason for these 2 bolts right here, is to pull this plate down to pinch down on the oil pan gasket. I will give them this. That's kind of a nice design. It's concerning, but it's kind of a nice design because I don't have to pull the oil pan to do a rear main seal. So I do like that. Where some of these, oof, I mean, you're pulling crank bolts to do a rear main seal. I mean, that's, wow. It's actually not that bad, but it's a pain in the butt. So I wanted to bring you in here just to talk about that real quick, making sure that you're just cleaning lightly. Like, you don't need to soak the crap out of this because everything will run down into the oil pan. Please just be aware and be careful. It doesn't take much. And you certainly don't need a 36 grit flap disc on a Milwaukee grinder that's running on 240 volts at 17,000 RPMs to clean that either. Just a little. That's it. That's all you need. Okay. So we're getting this cleaned up. I'm gonna grab the new gasket. We'll put it on here. I'll show you guys kind of how we do that. Let me just kind of get stuff placed. But now you know. Ha! You know! Okay, anyways, I'm done yelling at you guys. I'm gonna go away now. Silly cones. That's what these are. These are made of very small cones that tell jokes. And that's why they call them silly cones. We're gonna get a little bit of silicone. I like this stuff. This is made for airplanes, really. Most people say use black RTV. You can. I like this stuff. So I'm just gonna put a little bead here, and we'll take it and we'll make sure we're kind of in that crack down there. We did our best job we can to clean it. So we'll pack that little crack down there, and we'll put a little bit on the finger, and we'll pack that crack. Just remember, pack that crack. Really, it's just about getting that little seam, because that's that one place the gaskets just don't seem to like to work. You know, it's a corner, the machined edge, and sometimes they just don't seal. They're more walrus, if you know what I mean. The sun, the heat's getting to me. I'm gonna grab the plate. Let me show you what I'll do over there. So we need to lube up that seal. Remember me telling you earlier, if that made the cut. I grab any oil. It doesn't matter what oil you're using. I mean, realistically, you can spit on the thing if you want to. I just grab some oil that I have laying around that hasn't been used in forever, and I let it run all over the place. And just wipe it on that. We just want to lubricate that seal. Yeah, it ran all down my hands and everything, didn't it? So just a little bit, just a dabble doer. You can use some WD-40, you can use penetrant, just, it doesn't really matter. You just want to lubricate this seal. That's all we're gonna do. Okay. And yeah, I use 2-cycle. It's just what I had laying around. I don't even know where I got it. I'm sure I drained it out of some old chainsaw somewhere, and it works. It works, okay? That's all that matters. So we got that lubricated. We got the new pretty gasket. It's pretty obvious which way it goes on. You can see the old hole there and everything. So only lays the one way. And we'll put it back up in there and I'll show you guys how we tighten this. I'm sure there's a torque sequence, but don't worry about that. Got that elbow torque. Nah, man. All right, let's throw this thing in there. Oh, yeah, not that bad. So I went ahead and put that silicone on first, as you saw, because I wanted to let it sit for a minute. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's hot as hell, so it's been sitting for probably way too long now. It's probably completely dry and done. But yeah, you just want to get this in there and just, you know, align it. You kind of got to walk that bottom edge in and then push the top edge in slowly. Watch your seal, make sure it's going in exactly where it needs to go. And give it a little tappy tappy, and we should be good. We'll align this gasket. We'll grab these bolts. All 12,000 bolts for this little tiny plate. Some guys like to start them ahead of time because this gasket does have, some of the holes have a rubber seal, like where you can start the bolts, but it's not necessary. You don't necessarily need to. And we'll just get them all kind of hand started here. Please don't throw your bolts on a gun and stab them. Some guys do it. Again, if you're doing that, you're probably already pretty experienced mechanic, and I don't know why you're still watching this video. Other guys saw somebody do it and they go, oh! And they stick it on the gun and brrr. Yes, a cross thread is a tight thread. That is true. But it's also a cross thread. It's not cool. You know? So just take your time with it. Enjoy it. And we know that all the holes are lubricated because they dumped oil when we pulled them out. Okay, now here's the important thing. We can't forget about these guys. Remember, I told you this shares with the oil pan, so we don't want to forget about that. Okay? So we got to get these guys in before we tighten everything up. And we may need to tighten these lower ones just to kind of seat that in a little bit more. Let's do that. We'll just kind of tap them in there. We're not going to drive them home. We're just going to give them a little bit. We're just going to bring them in a little bit. We can always loosen them back up if we need to. But you saw that just pulled that in. And that's what we wanted. So before we go everywhere, let's go ahead and put these guys back in. Well, I mean, sheesh. Why are you not going home today? Perfect. I don't know what that was, but it decided it wanted to come down on my head. Oh, the drain, the breather. Okay, so we sunk those two in. We'll just give them a little tap. You can see that shifts that gasket right into place where it needs to be. So that's important, is that this is pulled down against this gasket. The rest of this we can pull forward. But if you pull all this forward before you pull this plate down, you will get a leak down here. So we're going to torque them. Click. 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 Torqued. And we know it's pulling down because we're getting some oil pulled out of it. And we can also see our little silicone popped out in the corners. That's important. But now that we got them pulled down, We can go around and tap these in. Again, I'm not going to drive them all home. I'm just going to get them snug. Okay, so we've got these snugged, we've got those snugged. If you're a torque wrench guy, now's your time. Go get your torque wrench and torque them down to yield setting things. Click, 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 and feel good about yourself. I think these things are like 100 inch-pounds or something like that. Inch-pounds, not foot. I think these are 100 inch-pounds if I remember right. And so far my memory's been pretty accurate on this. I just don't pay attention to this part because it's, and we're in. So we just have a conversation with it and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll work with you. Yeah, we're cool. We're cool, dude. Shaka, shaka ba. So, you should be good. It even left me a little snack. How about that? All right, now we start going back together. We took all that apart to do that. Doesn't that make you happy? Doesn't it make you smile? Like I'm talking ear to ear in the most sarcastic Batman Joker type smile in the world. Yeah, me too. It does. Me too. I'm gonna wipe a couple more things down back here while I'm in here. And then we'll start putting stuff together. What do you think of that? Hi, reassembly. I don't know if we're gonna do this separate video or the same one, but reassembly is the reverse of everything that you did for disassembly, right? Pretty standard, but we'll bring you through some of it maybe, if you're lucky. Again, remember we talked about flex plate. There's that additional hole. Crankshaft, the back of it's got the additional hole. We got all this bolted up. I did go back while the camera was off and I just checked everything with, you know, the wrist torque wrench, because these are inch, so I don't use the elbow torque, I use the wrist. Again, I've been doing this since I was like a kid. If you haven't done a lot of this, grab a torque wrench and torque these, just because you don't want to do all this again, okay? But I've been doing this so long that, like, really it is what it is. Anywho, I'm not saying that to brag, by the way. I'm just saying that, like, so you know why, like, I skip some steps sometimes. We're gonna line that hole, put the flex plate back on, just kind of walks on there. You can align the hole. This customer has decided not to use the old bolts. I think he probably read somewhere, someplace, somehow, sometime that some guy wrote that those bolts are torque, they're yield torque where they stretch, and they're not. You can reuse the bolts. You don't need to. So he went out and bought the ARP weird 12-point funky bolts. So these I will put a torque wrench on. If I was reusing the old bolts, I personally wouldn't, just because I know how many Ugga Duggas, and you know, we just know what it should feel like. So ARP comes with some juice, fastener assembly lubricant, Ultra Torque lubricant, or is it lubricant? Which basically stands for Loctite. So we are going to slowly get this out so that it doesn't go all over the place. Just a dabble doer. That's actually probably too much. Get them started. And we'll just go one by one. And then we'll jam them in real quick. I'll use the gun to, you know, pop them in there. And then we'll torque it down. So ARP comes with, they came with a little card in there that, and if you, again, if you want to, you can smooth out the lubricant. It'll be fine. Okay, don't get more crap on your fingers than what you need to. The card that comes with ARP gives you the torque spec for these bolts specifically, and that's why I want to torque these, because they are brand new. They are ARP, they're aftermarket, and so we will actually put Torquelize on these a little bit. And it's calling for 85 foot-pounds. So I've got to get a bunch of my friends, 42 and a half of my friends, to come over here so they can put their feet on a wrench, and I can get 85 foot-pounds. That's pretty quick math. You like that, Drew? I like that, huh? 42 and a half of my friends. Actually, I can get 43 of my friends because one of them has 1 foot. Yeah, I'll have him come over. That'll make things even easier. So then 43 friends. I don't have to find a half a friend. I can find a whole one that's just missing a foot. And that'll give you right there. Perfect. That's why you have friends that are missing limbs. You know? Because when you just need a half, they're there for you. You know, when you need a hand, not 2 of them, you got that buddy that's got a hand. Makes sense to me, right? No? I don't know. Seems to add up in my brain. But, yeah. This is the boring stuff. You know? I'm just sitting here making Drew's arm tired as I juice up the bolts, stick them into a hole and turn them. But the funny thing is, as long as I'm talking, Drew's filming. So we can make his arm as tired as we want. Because, you know, he's going to just keep holding that camera until I'm done talking. And he's also holding my torque wrench for me, which I'm going to steal the socket off of real quick so we can just put these things in real quick. All right, so these are a 12-point. And we're going to cross path. And we're just going to bang them in real quick. Oh, there goes the gun again. Again, like, I wouldn't normally put a torque wrench on this, but can. So we've got this set to 85 foot-pounds as to specs, what they call for, what they want. And you may get to a point where everything's turning. Well, crap, what do I do now, Brandon? You stop the turning. Put your finger through this hole and no, don't do that. We grab ourselves a screwdriver, a pry bar, something that we can put in here to hold, and then we just click, 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 click away. So, where is my little screwdriver? So you can literally go into any of these holes you want. You know, find the spot that it sticks in and hold it, whatever you want to do. It's entirely up to you, okay? You can put it right there, and then when you rotate it, it'll probably get right in your way. Or you can hold it so it doesn't get in your way. It's up to you. So we're just going to keep it from rotating. Oh, and we'll go up to this one. And we'll go down to this one. Oh no, this one. Oh no, this one. This one. This one. This one's lonely. I haven't picked it yet. It's like a Red Rover. Pick me! Pick me! Save the best for last, buddy. We all accept you. You're loved too. So then I just go around. If I'm actually using one of these click wrenches, I'll go triple check everything. Why not? You're already there. Just make sure, right? Clicky, clicky. You happy? I did it. It's clicked. Just. All right, now that we got that in place, we're ready to start stabbing this big chunk of metal back in there. Can we just quit now? I'm trying to hide. We're ready to put this back in place. So I did lie to you guys earlier too. The torque converter only has 3 bolts. Duh. Remember. One of the things I'm going to do is spend a little bit of time before I put this, probably off camera because you don't need to watch that. I'm going to spend a little bit of time cleaning this up. And the reason being is if I can clean up the dowel pins up here, especially you guys that are in the rust belt and those like dirty areas that are all rusty, and or if you're doing a Jeep that's been mudding and all that stuff, clean these areas, the dowel pins and the holes for the dowel pins. Spend that extra second or two, clean it out, because that way when it goes back together, it just kind of boom, instead of you having to wiggle wobble, wiggle wobble, wiggle wobble and get it back in there. We just want it to go boom. It makes our lives easier, okay? So spend that second. We're gonna spend a second just kind of cleaning, inspecting while we're all down here, see if there's anything we need to notify the customer of, and if we see any major cracks, anything. We're gonna check all that out, and then I don't even think I'm gonna bore you with the stabbing of this thing, really. We're gonna just get it up in there, because my hands are gonna be everywhere, making sure, again, that these wires and brackets and things aren't in between the housing. So we'll come back once we got that stabbed, and we'll show you exactly what we're doing. But pretty much at this point, it's the reverse of what we did to get it apart. It's remembering where bolts went, putting it back together. So if that helped you enough, I hope that helped you. If you want to watch the little bits that we might be putting up of putting this back together, feel free to watch on. But this was here mostly just to help you, so you can do this on your own, save a little bit of money, and hopefully this helped you out a little bit, you know? Again, the rest of it's just the reverse of everything you did. And if you're one of those guys that, like me, that sometimes have a hard time remembering these things, do yourself a favor also, and I'll tell you this right now, take pictures. Grab your cell phone, take pictures of what things look like. When you get the transmission dangling down, if you need to, take pictures of where things mounted. You can take a bunch of pictures. You can always go back and look at as you're coming apart. Back in the beginnings, that's what I used to try to do, or I would get cardboard and draw the diagram and stab bolts if I wanted to remember where bolts went. Just kind of take your time and figure this out. But I've got a mess to clean up down here, and then that way this will roll and we can get this stab back in. So we'll bring you back as we're putting things together. All right. Oh God, here we go. All right, so right now we did a bunch of stuff off camera. Like I said, everything that you guys are doing to put this back together is pretty much the reverse of everything you did to take it apart. So we didn't need to bore you with putting the exhaust and all that back on. We got that in, the cross member. Just kind of remember the order you took things apart in, and where wiring went. We got all the O2 sensors plugged back in, everything's in. So you just gotta kind of remember that. That's all kind of basic, just nuts and bolts where they go. But I want to bring you guys back for this part, because you see our starter's still dangling, and there's a reason for that. Because we still have to hook up the torque converter to the flex plate. Don't forget to do that. Seriously. Hey, I've seen that a bunch. And guys get in and they fire it up, the engine's running great, and it doesn't go anywhere. You gotta make them talk to each other. I mean, that's what these 3 bolts do, okay? So there's kind of a key to this that I want to just point out real quick. You're gonna line up your flex plate up here. You're gonna find your hole up back where you took the bolts from. So right up in here by the starter, we're gonna find the hole. I already got 1 bolt in, but when you do that, get it lined up to where you can access it, and then you can go in from any other spot. You can spin the torque converter until you see the holes lined up for the bolt to go into. So don't be scared. The torque converter is not going to be right where it was. That's okay. Line up your flex plate, get underneath here. I simply came from right back here in this inspection port. You can touch the torque converter there, and I just spun it standing out in front, but having my hand in there, spun this until I saw the hole and put the bolt in. Here's one of the keys I want to tell you though. The tendency is to put that bolt in and then hammer it down because you're going, I'm done, I want to get this thing done. No, don't do that. Finger tighten that one, then spin the engine over, not with the key, just bar it over off of the crank like you did to get it apart, and get all 3 bolts in, okay? Get all 3 bolts in before you tighten any of them, and then go back around and tighten all 3 of them. Those holes are a little bit larger. There's alignment there. And if you hammer that one home, you're gonna get to the next one and you may not be able to get that bolt started because it's just off. So the point to you, get it lined up, finger tighten it, get the next one lined up. You can always wiggle that torque converter again and get all 3 of them in, and then come back around, hammer them home, torque them, whatever you wanna do. It's like 6 Ugga Duggas and they're home. So, that's my key. I want to make sure that you guys, because there is some things obviously like going back together, like sometimes we make it like just bolt it together. No, there's little keys. Like there's these little things, right? Like exhaust is exhaust. Clip, clip, snap, snap, da 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 da. This is different. This is alignment. So once we have all these in, then you can go back and, if you care, which some people do, some people don't forget to put your little cover back in before you put the starter. Is it a pain? Oh, you betcha. But it's okay, right? Put the stuff back in if you've got it. Like, make it real. So all that is just nuts and bolts. That's simple stuff. But this I want to make sure we point out. So we're going to finish buttoning this all up. We'll bring you guys back when we're done. And fingers crossed it all works. So, all right. Might need to push that cart in.
Yeah, bro.
Now's the time for the test drive. So we got her all buttoned up. Double, triple, quadruple checked everything. We had a lot of distractions. I mean, it's Father's Day. So there was a lot of distractions that made it take longer, but that's okay. Plus filming always takes longer too. So we gotta make sure we're telling you guys what's going on instead of just rip bang zoom. And so yeah, we got her all done. We've already put it up in the air, checked trans fluid. We had to put a little bit more trans fluid in it. It was definitely low on oil. Put oil in there. And now it's time for the test drive and see if it's leaking. But put it up in the air, no leaky tiki, no drippy drippy. So we're gonna go double check and make sure everything's happy. It's the last part of the job. And then call them and tell them, come get it, come get your crap, man. Come get it, because I don't want it here. But we're gonna go test drive it, come back, hopefully all goes well. Cross your fingers with me, would you? Maybe your toes too? Get them crossed. Always go test drive the vehicles, come back, look under it again. Don't just fix something and give it back to your buddy. Make sure it's right, because you might have to put it up and do it all over again. Sometimes that happens. So we're gonna wiggle it out of here. You can tell we're kind of in this little cove area. It's really not the most convenient lift to get on, but we've been doing it for long enough that hopefully we don't run into anything. We'll see. Just watch everything for me, would you? It drives, it shifts, it does all the things it's supposed to do. And it stinks. It smells bad. Not in there, out here. So expect, when you're done with all this, if it's your first time, remember you just pulled exhaust. You sprayed oil on it if you did the things right to get the nuts off the exhaust. You got transmission fluid everywhere. You got oil everywhere. You touched all the things with all the things doing the stuff. It's all over the exhaust and it's burning off right now. So you're gonna smell some stuff. Remember that. We're gonna check it all out and we'll come back to you and let you know how it looks. Okay. All right guys, the job is all done. We have done everything that we needed to do. We got the rear main seal done, installed, and done properly. There's no weird noises, there's no funky things. I'll tell you something else too, kind of a key point. When you're pulling a vehicle in to work on it, listen to it. Try to pay attention to some of the things. We're noticing that the heads-up display for the Prindle switch, you know, the park, reverse, neutral, like that stuff isn't showing up. I don't know if it was showing up before. I didn't pay attention to that. So that's a little concerning. We'll ask the customer if that was showing up. But I did notice when we were pulling in, there was a little bit of a rod knock noise to this. So I'm not concerned with that. Otherwise, I would have fired this up if I hadn't paid attention and been like, crap, what did I do? Is one of the torque converter bolts loose? Is something loose? It's making the same sounds it made when I pulled it in. So be aware of that when you're pulling it in. But other than that, test drive went great. It did have to do a little bit of relearn on the shifting. So when I first drove it, it revved up pretty high and then it shifted. By the time we got around the block, it's shifting perfectly fine. So they will do a little bit of a relearn. You disconnected the battery, you disconnected the transmission. Those things kind of have to go through some of those processes sometimes. Get used to it. It's okay. Just give it some time. It works itself back in. We are smelling a little bit of oil burning, but that's all the old stuff burning off. I just crawled underneath. There's no drips, there's no leaks, there's no new stuff. And you can see where the little steam and smoke is coming off of the old stuff that's just caked on there that we couldn't really clean off. So we are going to get some of those smells, but that's normal. So just expect that. Other than that, guys, our job is complete. We've done it. Congratulations. You've just done a rear main seal on an LS. Well done. Good job. Now go do some more and make some money with it, because they're really not that hard when it's all said and done. They're really not that hard. It's just a lot of pieces and it's kind of overwhelming sometimes. But really, when you break it down and you lay out your parts right, like we talked about, they're really not that hard. Everything goes right back in the way it came out, and there's a couple little things you have to understand, but we covered those things. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a part of this, for sharing this, for subscribing. A lot of you guys that are watching this video are going to be new to our channel. You found us because you're searching how to do this job. We'd appreciate it if you just take the time and click and subscribe real quick. That helps us a ton to be able to provide more content like this and bring it to you a little bit more consistent. So we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. It is hot. It's been hot all day. The brain is melted, so English is hard. But we gotta go. So thanks for the subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the flippity flop and on the next one. Right on, baby. Oh, I'm out of here. Woo! Give me some water. Up here. Wherever you want to go. Whenever you want to go.
Okay, guys.
Should I do like the early 2000s YouTube video, like, hey guys. All right. Interesting. The glasses are too hot. So it stopped recording because it said the glasses are too hot. That's not going to work. Can you cut all that out about the glasses? Or you can actually leave it in, and then I can say later that we're not going to have them. Yeah. It's hot. Okay. It's not hot. We live in Arizona. It's nice and cool out here. Nice summer's breeze. Just hanging out, enjoying the ocean. Hello. I am schizo talking to myself. And everybody else. Okay. We're taking bets on what the next distraction is. All right. First Form Energy. Still not a sponsor, but certainly could be.